Hey everybody, welcome back. We are going to do our second video from lesson 6, unit 4, and we are going to look at how we can find side lengths using what we now know about our trigonometric functions. All right, so what we learned last time is that depending on where we are in a right triangle, depending on what angle we are referring to, we can look at the triangle and kind of name the sides relative to our position. So this image here is using A as a reference point. And so we see the following language: adjacent side, opposite side, and hypotenuse. And we learned that there are three trigonometric functions, sine, cosine, and tangent, that all take a ratio of one unique pair of those sides. Sine is the ratio of the opposite side to the hypotenuse. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Tangent, the opposite over the adjacent. Again, um, depending on which angle we refer to in the right triangle will kind of change how our ratios end up working out to be. But they still use those same pairs no matter which angle we're referring to. Right? It's just the fact that when we move from one angle to the other, the opposite side and the adjacent side will switch. So what I'm going to show you guys today is how we can use that to our advantage to find a missing side length where we don't want to use the Pythagorean theorem, or we can't. So the first problem says find ij. So this is ij. So this is our kind of unknown here. I'm going to call it the question mark. I like the question mark. We don't know it. What we do know is angle K. And I'm going to do a better job of circling that. And we know side 10, right? So we know this information. So what we want to try and figure out is what ties all this stuff together. Okay, so side 10 is definitely the hypotenuse, right? That's the longest side. So we are going to know that that's the hypotenuse again. We know it's the longest side because it's opposite of the 90-degree angle there. But we should be able to identify that pretty quickly. So the question mark, right, the unknown side, we would call this the opposite side of our angle. So what we need to figure out is which trig function are we going to use? And so we have to think back to our diagram, or our little pneumatic device here, which was SOHCAHTOA. Right, SOHCAHTOA, all right, our little acronym here, and figure out which of the three pairs uses O and H. Now that's sine, SOH. And what this tells us is that the sine of an angle, again, this is just a dummy angle here, is going to equal the opposite side over its hypotenuse. Right, so how do I work this out? So the way that I work this out is I'm going to input my pieces together. I'm going to input what I know. I know theta, I know my angle, and I know h. So I'm going to say here the sine of angle 44 degrees equals O, which is my question mark. I don't know it. And I'm going to divide this by 10. Okay, so this is the statement I'm trying to come up with, right? In the past, we knew the opposite side and we knew the hypotenuse, but we didn't really know what the angles were. And these types of problems, what we're going to do is we're going to take those, we're going to build the ratios the same way, but if we're missing a side, we're just going to have it in that spot. Okay, so from here, we can actually solve this. Now, you may think, well, what in the world is the sine of 44? Well, this is actually an expression that represents, funny enough, a fraction or a number that we can find. This is one that you're going to want to use a calculator for. So again, you can use the Desmos calculator. You can use your phone calculator if you want. But what's very important is that we are in what is called degree mode. Notice how we are using degrees in this problem. There is another type of measurement called radian measure. We don't use. A lot of calculators default to it, unfortunately. So you're going to need to again, do that. But I'll show you on my screen how it should look. But from here, if we were trying to solve for A, or sorry, if we were trying to solve for the question mark, we're going to multiply both sides. Let me get my good pen here. We're going to multiply both sides by 10, right? So we're going to get 10 times the sine of 44 degrees is going to equal our question mark, right? The divided by 10 times 10 goes away. So I'm going to make sure, again, I'm in degree mode. And I'm going to type in 10 times the sine of 44. And I'm going to share that with you on the screen. 10 sine 44, I get about 6.646, right? So this is 6.646. Now, look at the answer, what it asks for. It says rounded to the nearest tenth, right? So if we rounded this to the nearest tenth, this would round down to 6.6. Again, the number after the 10th place is a 4, so we go down. Okay, let's look at another example here. This one, we're going to have to kind of do a couple of steps at the very end, but it's not going to be so bad. All right, so find xy. So xy is our hypotenuse. So we have this big long side that we are missing here. We see that A, we've got this side here. We've got our angle y. So this we would call, right, the adjacent side to y. This is the hypotenuse. Again, if we think about our SOHCAHTOA saying, which of them has A and H together? That would be cosine, right? So we would say, okay, the cosine of some angle is going to be the adjacent side over the hypotenuse, right? So we can build this form and kind of go from there, right? So we're going to say, okay, well, the cosine of our angle, which is 24 degrees, so kind of like the last problem, is going to equal the adjacent side, which is 9, over the hypotenuse, which, again, we do not know. Right? We don't know. So this bothers people a lot, right? They don't really like to solve for things when it's in the denominator. Fractions throw them off. This one's actually not so bad to figure out. It's just 2 steps. So this is the weird part. We're going to multiply both sides by the unknown question mark. Right? So what happens essentially is our unknown multiplies over, very similarly to how in the last problem we multiplied the 10 over. And on the right side, the fraction goes away. So we're just going to have 9. Okay. Now, because we don't have the unknown side by itself, now what we need to do is get it by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by the cosine of 24. And you may think, oh my gosh, this is really complicated. You either do 1 step or 2 steps, right? 1 step is when everything's on when your unknown is in the numerator. You got to do 2 steps when it's in the denominator, but it always ends up working out the same way. So we're going to get the unknown side here is going to be 9 divided by the cosine of 24. Now this is one where with a phone calculator, you might be having some trouble. But again, 9 divided by the cosine of 24. Again, we see here, I get about 9.851, which this would round up to 9.9. Again, 9.9, we look at the number past the 10th place, which is a 5, so we round up to get 9.9.